I would encourage you to come back and you know, plant some white oak or walnut or something in this opening that was created by felling this tree.
I see.
I'd plant in tube, only 3, 4, 5 trees maybe. You don't have to get too carried away with it, but plant and tube them and, you know, get some advanced regen because it's not here.
And tubes are your preferred economical way to protect them.
Yeah. Yep.
And do you like the 4-footers or do you like to go up to 5 foot?
I'm a service I use 4-footers.
Yeah.
It's witch hazel. Oh, we did. I had no idea that was here.
So like a 48-inch tube is generally works out okay.
I think the tree I feel like it gets stout enough by the time it's coming out of there.
Yeah.
And they don't.
I feel like the 5-footers, the tree's even stemmier. And then you need a bigger stake sometimes, and it's harder to pound that stake in because the stake's so tall. And when you're doing a lot, it really adds up.
Yep. And I look at it from a cost perspective too, you know. Is that extra foot an extra dollar or a tube?
It does cost more, the stake costs more, and then it seems like the deer, like the stem is thick enough, they don't eat it off right at the 4 foot.
So here's the little clusters of fruit that'll come off of it. You've probably heard of American hazel, or
hazelnut.
Hazelnut, yeah.
Yeah,
this
I've heard of that. We used to have.
So
these
what
up
is
in
this
West
one?
This
Branch.
is witch hazel.
Oh, witch hazel.
When I hunted in West Branch, we had these, but they were always small. They weren't as big as
These
this.
are pretty big.
Yeah.
These are mature. You know, like if you were to open this up, I recommend folk you could come here and cut them and sprout them because these are pretty kind of old. You can see they're starting to die out. And so if you do some cutting in here and have the opportunity to, kind of like I said with the prickly ash, you cut it, let it sprout, and kind of freshen itself. Because if the top just dies out, it probably won't sprout back aggressively.
Does that activity depend on taking the canopy out?
Yes, it does. It needs some sunlight. Where, you know, I would maybe work in strips or circles, you know, like around that tree stand back there. Like you want to open that up to maybe, get more regeneration. Then, you would maybe just clear a half an acre spot, you know, and do that every year or something, and to get the habitat work done in that way.
I mean, you could kill it too and leave it standing.
No. Yeah, you can girdle it in place.
There's value. I mean, standing dead trees is a lot of wildlife value.
And they fall slow, you know, it'll slowly fall and crumble.
Okay. Yeah, and then when it falls, it might take, if it falls sooner, it'll take other branches out and let sunlight in.
So if you were going to do that and improve the habitat yourself in pockets or in swaths, and he'd come in and take out some of these maples, what is the appropriate thing to do with the tree? If you just saw it up for firewood, you just saw it up or just let it fall and leave it?
I mean, in these types of soil, if you fell this red maple and it rested along the ground, it would be gone pretty quickly. Because of the nature of these soils and the moisture that's here, they would just get sucked up into the muck pretty much.
And then you're creating a bit of a tornado zone of sorts, and it'd be a mess to get through.
With red maple, oftentimes you get lucky and it will stump sprout, so you get some regeneration from that.
Now, the other thing we learned earlier, Cody, that I'm going to repeat because I thought it was valuable, Jason said that he wasn't always in favor of the hinge cutting because it almost confuses the tree, and the tree doesn't know, should I try to repair myself and regenerate as a tree from the 4-foot hinge area, or should my roots send up sprouts? And so he seemed to be a little bit more in favor of like a flush cut in order to tell the tree unequivocally,
your top is dead, sprout. Because you do get, you cut 4 feet up, you hinge it, you get some sprouting, but also it's trying to grow that piece that's connected, and so you will get some reasonable growth for a few years, but long term that root will die. But if you cut a tree flush, there's nothing above ground to try to save, so it's just going to shoot up sprouts that could survive long term. You know, those sprouts could potentially turn into a new tree.
So Cody could cut even his sort of younger red maples.
Yeah.
You could try cutting those low, and then instead of, you'd have food for the deer, but you might potentially have some more horizontal cover with the stems too.
Yeah.
And Jason wasn't against hinge cutting. I think he would say there might be reasons to do it for steering deer or otherwise, but
more strategically, on more of a limited basis. And I tried to pick on certain tree species. Like you get into an upland site where you've got oaks and maples and hickories, I tend to not like to do those. But if you've got elm and basswood and sometimes this red maple, I'm okay with that. Box elder, the lower quality species that don't have a whole lot of timber potential.
And I do think there's a lot of history of box elders specifically surviving for a long time after hinging. They're just pretty resilient.
Trees, that's almost a regeneration tactic. They'll fall over, and that tree will just put roots down. You almost can't kill them.